In the interim, I want to start by asking a past candidate, Aisha, your about her experiences because you wrote a book on this particular topic. So when you think about since we don't really think about elections as something that relates to candidates when it comes to their mental health or election related stress, can you discuss some of the ways that you think that running and campaigning may have impacted your mental health as a candidate? And were there any specific issues or challenges that are unique to female contestants?
Thanks, Chime. Hi, everyone. Well, it was a very long time ago, and if you read the book, you know that I didn't dwell on mental health at all. But I think it's hard to talk about mental health in the context of maybe elections and contesting without sort of talking a little bit about what it means to run in Nigeria. So Nigeria, for me, having not run in any other jurisdiction or any other state, I have no idea. But I think some of the things that make Nigeria elections particularly stressful would be, first of all, the cost. So it's very expensive to run for office in Nigeria. And so you have to worry about that. You also have to worry if you're a woman about just the perception of you running. And of course, the negative stereotypes that go along with a woman running. And so that can also add to the stress. And then, of course, we have our ethnic and religious tensions. And we just also have the whole idea of elections as existential politics, do or die. So all those things combined would come together to make elections particularly stressful. If I remember my own time, and those three things that I mentioned, I pick on my own experience. So for example, of course, I had to raise money. How would I find the money? Who would give me the money? It's okay to want to get, mom and pop type donations from friends and family, but you need big money. And so that was the source of stress, obviously, constantly for me, from beginning to the end of the short campaign to win the PDP ticket in 2014 to represent the Amak Buhari constituency in the FCT. The second thing I think I mentioned was, just being female. I think I even got asked once, where's your husband, which is very weird because I'm not aware that male candidates get asked, where's your wife, but maybe they do. But so again, as a female, you have to contend with patriarchy, misogyny, and some of it is direct, some of it is not direct. You also get the sense that people want to take advantage of you. And I think that happens to all candidates. It's also a factor in our elections in Nigeria, that when it's time for elections, if you're a candidate, there's this expectation from the public. And the public includes not just your delegates whose votes you're trying to get if you're in the primaries, or if you're running in a major election just from the regular voters, but there's this expectation that you're going to pay people to vote for you, or whether it's at the primary stage or whether it's at the local stage. And so there's constantly this treating you like a cash machine, an ATM machine, where you constantly have to dole out money. Again, that could be a source of stress. I think lack of information was also stressful. Again, Nigeria is not an easy place to run because our political parties are not really parties in the sense that you think about political parties as places that have memberships where they come around, they talk, they know each other. It's a very opaque system until maybe literally less than 24 hours before the primaries. It wasn't clear who the delegates were going to be. We had an idea who the delegates were, but the official list was not released till maybe like about 1 p.m. the day before the primaries. And so you had to scuttle around, try and find this information and make sure that the people you've been engaging with as delegates were actually going to be the people who would be voting the next day. In my case, there were 2 out of 66 ad hoc delegates who were completely new. And so again, the scramble to find out who they were, who knew them, to enable you to go and engage with them. So I find all those things and probably more quite stressful and quite, harmful for your mental health. So you can think about running in Nigeria in terms of the emotional and psychological impact of running, the emotions of just being on the road constantly. You can think about your physical health, just how it wears you down, how you never have enough time for yourself, how people are constantly looking for you. There's obviously the time and the workload And there's the impact on your personal relationships, you know, with your family, with your friends. If they're not on the campaign trail with you, they can find you. There's this perception that, you know, you're sort of cutting yourself off, you're not answering calls. There could be emergencies. You're trying to juggle different responsibilities. So that's also part of what can create stress for people mentally. There's also a lot of public scrutiny and media pressure. I would say, depending on what role you're running for, obviously, the public scrutiny and media pressure is more or less. If you're relatively unknown, like myself, then probably the pressure is a lot lower. But if you're high profile, if people know who you are, then there would be that additional public scrutiny, people trying to dig into your personal life, your professional life. And so that could also be, of course, a source of fear. And then it's just, yeah, failing, like, you know, the stress, the fear of failing. And then when you actually fail, like in my case, when I didn't win, yeah, it shocked me how sad I was. I was actually surprised at how much, you know, it took out of me to lose. I hate losing. And typically I tend not to want to play games because I don't want to lose. So there's that psychology of the fear of failing. And then when you fail, what it says about you, that you failed and how you process that. And then, of course, there's the ethical and moral dilemmas for running. Again, I think that's something that's probably present in many different states, but in Nigeria, again, heightened by the type of politics that we play. And so, you know, in my case, you know, we should give money to the delegates. If you don't give money to the delegates, will they vote for you? In hindsight, thinking through that process, writing the book Love Doesn't Win Elections, I realized that that was an ethical and moral dilemma that I faced, you know, including, suggestions that, you kneel down when you're giving the delegates money because they like people who are humble. You know, the whole thing is a complete charade. And you're thinking, should I be taking part in this charade or should I be standing apart? And for me, that might even be the biggest thing in terms of the stress on your mental health. Like, what is running doing to your values, to your sense of who you are? And then obviously there's mental health strain from making strategic decisions, because what could be more strategic than, you know, an election and who you need to meet, who you don't need to meet with, who are the gatekeepers, who are the influencers, who can change things in your favor. How do you balance all these interests? Who's calling you, who's not calling you, who's calls do you not answer? So that strategic decision-making process constantly, you know, how much money should you give to this person that says they need to deal with this for you, and because you can't do everything yourself, juggling all those things, again, very, very. And then I didn't even have to deal with going to court. Again, today we had the Supreme Court decision, so I can't imagine the level of anxiety amongst all the candidates who have had to go through the court process and just, you know, waiting for that. Again, a very, very extremely expensive process. I've heard horrendous things about what, you know, especially when it gets to the appeal process. First of all, trying to get your evidence from INEC. INEC typically acts as if they're constantly the defendant, as opposed to being a neutral party. Getting the evidence you want from INEC is stressful and expensive. When it gets to the appeal stage, getting the records of the judgment, again, extremely expensive. So again, it seems, for me, honestly, the entire process is extremely stressful, and my hat's off to people who keep going back over and over again. I'll stop there. Thank you.
So much. I think it's really good to get a candidate's perspective, especially a female candidate's perspective. I'd never heard of things like, you know, the kneel down, or are you campaigning with your husband and things like that. So it's understandable to understand those challenges. Now I want to go to Mr. Jake Bele. When we think about mental health issues or challenges, I don't think we think about it in the context of persons with disabilities. And so one of the things that excited me about you talking today is that I spent a lot of time during the elections at your electoral hub, because you did these amazing electoral assessments on persons with disabilities, and you're continuing to do it. So can you talk a little bit about the elections and persons with disabilities, physical, mental health issues? What did your findings say from some of these electoral observations that you did, that we should be aware of?
Thank you. I want to thank you for your boldness and your tenacity, and you are an amazing individual trying to delve into where others don't consider viable. even financially. But let me take some time out. I was listening to the lady that just made a presentation, and ma'am, I want to, on behalf of, I would say, very feeble men who had treated you and your likes the way they have treated you, I want to sincerely apologize. Not being apologetic, but to sincerely say that it's unfortunate that this society still treats women the way they are treated. You know, I sincerely, my heart goes out for you. I could listen to you all day and how smart you are, how intelligent you are, and yet the society didn't give you the opportunity that you deserve. My sincere apology. That said, I fight for women, youth, and persons with disability, with focus on persons with disability. And I am too old to contest for election. That's my decision. And so what I've been doing is to prepare the way for younger ones and push them to contest for election. It's not been easy, knowing fully well that we're also, like women, in a society where if you are different, if you don't look, so to speak, normal, you are told to go behind, and nobody wants to give you a chance, you know. And of course, when you find yourself being one time or the other rejected by the very society that should accept you, it takes a toll on your mental stability. I think I would say that 95% of all persons with disability, albinism in particular, go through one form of mental health challenge or the other. Some of them may not be able to tell you, but I can tell you that we do that, you know. And so fighting in the electoral space for persons with disability, one, to participate, two, to be voted, three, to be appointed in terms of political appointment, has been a Herculean task. One, getting the people to even believe in themselves. And of course, many of them struggling with low self-esteem. Many don't even believe that they have the capacity to occupy elective office. So it's a difficult terrain, and where a situation where you have to deal with trying to help people with battered image, and people who are struggling to find their feet. Some of them does not even want to stand before people and talk. So we've gone from 2, 3 people or 5, not up to 5, that were willing to contest for election, to 35 the last election, and yet we're still struggling, trying to get them to find their feet and then come out and contest election. So basically, I have sort of changed strategy, because leadership is always on top and not top bottom. So I have been able to convince many of them to leave the crowded space, crowded political space. And that's what happens at the national and the sub-national. And let's go to the local government. And I said to my sister, the likes of Lois, I said, go to your local government. That's where you are known. Go to your community. Start by contesting for councillorship, contest for local government chairman. Those spaces are not as crowded as the spaces in the House of Representatives or the subnational assemblies and the governorship and all that. So that's where we're working on at the moment. But when people wants to serve and they feel that they are qualified to serve, whether you have disability or you don't, and then the society denies you the opportunity, it takes a toll on you. When an individual wants to get married to a particular individual, and the parents of that individual will not allow you to get married to that person, it takes a rejectional grip on you. And so I think this is something that I want to also ask everyone on this call to please become an advocate for persons with disability, not only in the electoral space, but in all spheres. Persons with disabilities struggle financially, so you're talking about financial inclusion. They do struggle spiritually because there are churches and mosques that will not allow them to live out or even survive within their space. Tell me how many churches are disability friendly, even environmentally speaking. How many homes, many people live upstairs and there are no lift for you to go upstairs. So if you're a person with disability, you have to be carried. Imagine, and I think I will end here. Imagine where a woman wants to board a flight and she's not able to wheel herself into the plane and she has to be carried. And the person carrying her is a man fiddling with her breast, trying to hold her buttocks. It's very, very demoralizing and dehumaning. So that's why people like us have decided that for the rest of our lives, we're going to live fighting the cause of persons with disability, women, and youth. Be rest assured that I'm very comfortable for my wife to be the president of Federal Republic of Nigeria, and I'll be the first man. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you're a man on this platform and you don't have respect for women and you don't believe in equality of women, then we need to think twice. Let me
thank you so much, sir.
Thanking you for inviting me, but to say to everyone on this call, I want you to remember the very important thing that happened to you the day you were born. You cried. Everyone around you were rejoicing. My advice, live your life so well that the day you die, you will rejoice and everyone around you will cry. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a life of contribution. My question, who will cry at your funeral? Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think that I stand in alignment with you when we say that we apologize to Madame Asori for her experiences, but also we also acknowledge what you said in terms of the various challenges that persons with disability face. Now, I want to take it to Sophie. Are you there? Yes,
Hi,
there we
I'm
go.
here.
There, yeah. Good to see you. So we're really excited to hear from you and to hear from you, especially as a representative of YAGA. And most people know of YAGA as one of the organizations that are leading change, especially when it comes to young people in Nigeria. And to be honest, one of the impetuses for this conversation is that a lot of individuals felt a lot of hope about their preferred candidate winning or not winning, I mean, this particular elections. And it was billed as, whether it's individuals you're fighting for, and it sounded like they had some sort of individual they may wanted to win or not. So what are your sentiments concerning youth who may feel depressed that their preferred candidate did not win at the polls, or if they heard the news today and it wasn't what they expected or not? What would be your message from them, and what do you think is generally some thoughts around young people when it comes to electioneering and mental health?
Thank you so much, Chime. First of all, I would like to say that young people and everyone should acknowledge that election is a competition, and so that there must be a winner. And if young people or anybody that is participating or supporting an election acknowledge the likelihood of failure, it will help. It will go a long way in helping those individuals accommodate the outcome of the elections. In fact, what I usually use to encourage myself and other young people in this that are interested or in the electoral process is that election is like a soccer game. Even though we understand that the impact of election as a game is different from other games because it impacts directly to individuals and also the society at large. But at the end, we always encourage people to employ the spirit of sportsmanship and engage the entire process. But on the second thought, or secondly, I would like to also say that election is not, and this is to young people, it's more of my message to young people, is that election is not a sprint race, but a marathon. It is not a given that election must be won in first trial. We've had the former president of Nigeria, for instance, winning in not even his second trial. And so to overcome some of these emotional elements and challenges that comes with the outcome of elections, we encourage young people to look beyond the results or the outcome of the elections. Those that participated as candidates to look at what motivated them to contest in the first place. Those that participated in other ways, such as supporting with voter education, with political campaigns and others, to also look at what motivated them to contribute in those various aspects. And young people should not be hard on themselves. The fact that some young people are not happy with the outcome of elections, it's important for these young people to also appreciate their contributions, to appreciate the role they played in the political space or the electoral space, which shows their roles and contributions as a citizen of their country. So their efforts, young people must appreciate their efforts and their contributions, especially in the last election, with how they shape and continue to influence outcome of the different phases of the elections. And election is a circle. Election is not just an event, even though the outcome of the election is who finally won from the ballot. But the election is an entire circle, and there are different changes one can make or young people can make. And we've seen that in our history since in our history, and especially from 2015, young people have been at the forefront of driving political campaigns of most popular candidate, and also to an extent influencing the outcome of elections. And that's why today we're seeing that there are more young people contesting for elections, even though sometimes the outcome can be discouraging. But we also have more young people, youth enthusiasm. We're also having more young people in political space. So for me, again, and to round up, is to say that young people must acknowledge the fact that we need to keep trying. We need to keep supporting the right candidate. This is not the time for you to lose hope. Like I said, it's a marathon. We can continue to try, and if we don't get it at the first, second trial, there's a chance for us to get it at subsequent trials. And we should also always support whoever we believe whoever we believe will deliver or serve the nation in the right direction. And we should never give up, and we should, as young people should never be hard on themselves, and should never be discouraged with however the election, whatever the outcome of the election is.
Thank you so much, Ms. BCG. It's really good to understand. I don't think that people think of elections as a cycle that is continuous and that they shouldn't be discouraged. And that in a competition, there's always a winner or a loser. So even if your individual did not win, then that's something you should you should be conscious of. Now we do have our keynote speaker here, and I think it would be good in case there's any other internet challengers or so that we allow him to talk and join the panel. It would be great so individuals can hear from GRV and also get his perspective on the elections and mental health and some of the things that we're faced in Lagos State. So I want to invite him to the stage. Sir, if you're there. There we go. And if you could tell us
Yeah, I am. Can
about
you hear me?
yes, sir, we can hear you. It would be great to hear about your
Okay.
perspective, your message to young people, how mental health might have been your mental health might have been impacted by the elections, and for you to join the panel so people we can make this a robust conversation um, from all the diverse perspectives.
Okay. As you know, I'm not a mental health expert. Um, I do know the importance of mental health, and I feel that anybody that aspires to leadership should have a robust strategy for managing um, and for me, it's tied to having a supportive structure. I mean, if you want to go out and win support from people, you must first have your own support structure that can always be there for you and always make sure that you are fairly balanced. There are challenges, obviously, but that comes with it. I say to people, you either get power through the barrel of a gun or through the ballot box. They are pretty much the same in terms of the mental aspect of it. Because if you're, especially if you're contesting at very high stakes, so you need to be very mentally strong and know the things that you engage with, know the things that you don't engage with. And strategy to have that, mental breather because there'll be so many things coming together at once, and you need to have a team that can manage all that for you and also um, filter the things that you act on and respond to. So that's from a personal point of view. I think that the value I can bring to this conversation is shedding light on the peculiar nature of this last election. Now, what I've found is that politicians, there tend to be two perspectives that politicians view people. The first perspective is appealing to a higher sense, a higher understanding. So a politician can come and tell you, you see, if we do this, like this, your life will be better. And this is how your life can be better. Look at these other countries. It gives you something to aspire to, gives you hope, and says that, you deserve better. So vote for me and I'll make your life better. And explains this painstakingly, in a campaign. The other set of politicians believe that most of voters are animals. I think that the illustration that comes to mind, some question whether it was Stalin, but I mean, this anecdote has come down several generations where he plucked the feathers completely off a chicken. Chicken was wreathing in pain, but he proved the point by saying, even though this chicken knows I plucked all his feathers, as far as I share corn, it will follow me to wherever I'm going. Now, this how politicians don't necessarily believe they deal with humans at their primordial level, which is either ethnic baiting, tribe, violence, intimidation, or just money, food, right? Now, that used to be the way that politics was generally run since I got involved in politics directly in 2016. But this particular elections had a candidate, His Excellency Peter Obi, that came out and made people start to aspire, fill people with hope, so that so many people that don't normally participate because they feel that these people are not talking to them, don't inspire any hope in them. A lot of them went and registered and voted. So the heartbreaking thing, which I feel will be the real mental issue moving forward, is how these people's hopes have been crushed, how they do not believe in any of the systems anymore. Whether it's INEC, whether it's judiciary, whether so yes, there's the whole story, the whole narrative of elections are every cycle, elections there accept a winner or loser. Now that works when people have trust in the system, right? If we have trust in the system, almost 85, between 75 to 85% of people that participate in elections went to court. That's clearly an indictment on the system. So it would be foolhardy to believe that people can just accept, okay, it's a cycle. Because everything that you were made to believe going into that process was proved to be wrong and flawed. And there's a lot of distrust now of the entire system. Now, the bigger picture of this is the hopelessness that it gives. And hopelessness is then manifested in your currency, right? Is reflected in people believing that a nation is going to move forward, so I'm going to invest. I'm going to keep my money in that country. Capital is going to move and stay in that country. I'm going to make moves to better myself so I can get a better job in this country. But what you find is record rates of japa down. My niece started school, I think it was 2 months ago, and she was the only student in the class. All her classmates had left. Whether they went to Canada or wherever, they all left. And literally, she had to move to a new school, she and her sister. And this is rampant all across the country. So it's that hopelessness. And hope is a very real currency. It's really what takes a nation to be where it needs to be. I remember when I graduated from MIT in 2008, and my friends also from Harvard, all of us moved back because there was so much hope in Nigeria. The Obasanjo regime gave so many people hope, so they didn't even bother looking for jobs in the States. They all moved back. Now, this is the damage that this whole process has done. Regardless of who your candidate is, or I guess if your candidate is the president as declared by the Supreme Court, then but no, I feel that even the people that are supporting the current president, they know the damage that they've done to the system. So now the question for me is, how do people deal with this reality? How do you rekindle hope in the hearts of people? Because if you say that it's a circle, that implies that people are going to believe in the system to come out and vote again, which I don't necessarily think is true. Because there'll be two things. For your favorite candidate to win now, he now has to adopt the idea of people are animals. And I say this literally because you see, when you when you start to think that I'm going to use so much violence on a person, I'm going to stab a person, I'm going to maltreat and beat a person, you are no longer seeing their humanity. So you are treating them like animals, right? And based on what has happened now, what politicians will look at say is, okay, it's either I'm going to buy up this system, try and compromise this system, use violence in the system, And while people might say that yes, there are some upsets, certain governors lost their bid to go to the Senate, um, I can only speak, and that's fine. I acknowledge that. But I can only speak from a point of view of Lagos State where elections were conducted, and I was a part of it at all levels in all ramifications. So for me, from mental health point of view, I don't really think I can talk too much about personal experience with mental health. I think that again, power is a game of kings, and you must be very deep to. It's not a game for kids. So, but it's the people I'm worried about and how they're going to manage to protect the hope that they have. Especially with this judgment, they just even watching the timelines to see how much people have lost faith in judiciary, even moving forward, is not a good thing for a nation. It's not. So, and at the end of the day, I think everybody's interest is to have a nation that works. I will not be in politics if our country was working, or business to have in politics. But Plato said it like if you choose not to get involved, you're going to be ruled by people that you classify less than you. For me, I'm going to the only coping mechanism I can say right now for people is it's now time for a detox, right? This whole thing got extremely toxic. People should look to taking time off social media, a week, 2 weeks. Um, People should look back at what they have, especially for the young people that participated in this election, for what they accomplished, how they're able to create such a huge movement in such a short time with little or no money. It is historic, it's remarkable, it's something that has not been done in history that I can remember. Um, and start to recount the positive aspects of this journey. And let's stay on that for now. Tomorrow we'll get to that bridge. Um, it's time to cross it. But now I feel it's time for a detox. There's a lot of ethnic divisions, ethnic strife, um, just a lot of toxicity, and it's time to just disengage from that for mental well-being, and look towards the positives that has happened in this whole build up to this. And I guess when everybody has detoxed and calmed down, right next 1 year, year and a half, there are going to be structures which they can join, things that we can do better, lessons that we have learned from this experience that will ensure that we don't make the same mistakes again. So I'm going to leave it there. Right. So thank you for having me.
I'm on. I didn't realize I was muted. Thank you so much, Sarah. I didn't realize I was muted. I think you left on a hopeful message, and I think that your suggestions are apt because I was going to ask you about that. You mentioned the ethnic divisions that you face and others, individuals, but your recommendations were detox, take time off of social media to kind of let these things comprehend and understand. You also had a suggestion about look at what's been accomplished, so be gratitude concerning what has been accomplished, a huge movement with little or no money. That's historic. And then that there is a future beyond what people are facing right now in terms of being hopeful. I think that those are really good messages. I want to come back to you. I want to give people an opportunity for questions, but I want to just see if we can touch real quickly on the other panelists, just to get some reactions and thoughts. And so, Aisha, are you with us still?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you have any thoughts or reactions to what GRV said? Do you think do you have specific strategies? He mentioned 3 strategies in terms of coping with his mental health and of what other young people might want to do. He also mentioned reality that this isn't a kid's game. People are hurt. What are your thoughts around either dealing with psychosocial and emotional effects of the elections or even incorporating mental health initiatives, support systems within agendas going forward in the future?
Thanks. I mean, I agree with Badimbo that we have to do both. That's count blessings, wins, positives, and then reflect on the things that are making us unhappy about, whatever it is we're feeling unhappy about. Sometimes we don't give enough time to sit with our feelings. There's a rush, and maybe it's part of, the new age with technology and the sense of instant gratification, but it's fine to sit with your unhappiness, to question, to sort of examine, just why am I unhappy? Why does this hurt so much? What was I expecting? And that's after, as you say, and you'll probably be doing both at the same time, but just don't forget to, as you think through the positives, as a way of consoling yourself and keeping yourself energized for the future, you also have to think about why you're unhappy. What is it making? Did you play an active part in what you're unhappy about, or is it something that happened to you? Do you have any power? What do you have control over? I find walking, just going for walks, really therapeutic for me. Just taking time out to be in nature. If you have a garden, I know it sounds really frou-frou, but it does help. And it's not a Western thing. We have plants in Nigeria. We have very fertile land, and growing things with your hands, whether it's flowers, whether it's vegetables in your garden, but just being in nature really helps, I think. It also helps with thinking. Walking helps with thinking. I found that when I process what's bothering me, I tend to do better. For others, they might want to seek professional help, get therapy. I know thankfully, because of awareness now and education, we know that it's not a thing of shame to see a therapist. To also understand that there's stages of grief, and what many of us will be feeling about the election since February, March, because there were two sets of elections and two sets of results to be upset about on the federal level and on the state level. So to process those things, to understand that there's stages of grief, and in a way, what hurts is a form of grief, and the grief, goes through different stages. I can't remember all of them, but there's anger, and eventually you end with acceptance. But you can speed that up by not running away from your feelings, by not reacting, but just sort of, and then, in addition to those things, I would say, depending on how you feel, the fight isn't over, so to speak. And there's still elections happening by elections happening, I think maybe 3 over the next couple of months in Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi. So for those who are minded that way, there's still the good fight to keep at, to mobilize people to come out to vote. We really had very low voter turnout, and even that low voter turnout could be tied to how people are feeling generally about election after election, not delivering what they want for themselves, for their lives, for the country, for their communities. And so people tend to shut down. But for those who have the energy wherewithal emotionally, because there's a lot of emotional burden to sort of keep going in Nigeria, to stay positive, but it's not impossible, and there are many people there. I would say surround yourself with family and friends who can cheer you up, and of course music always tends to help. Happy, and comedy, just do all reruns, just try and in addition to thinking, also find ways to just uplifting your spirits from time to time.
Thank you so much. I think those are good suggestions. I really like one of the ones you said, which is around music. I'm a big music fan. I think it's great, but you had a lot of good suggestions. Sitting with your feelings and understanding that grief is a process, and you're at one stage of the process, maybe it's earlier, but you also mentioned some other things that you do, whether it's walking in and gardening, and the fact that these are not Western things, but these are things that everybody, Africans and Nigerians, can engage with, that we're looking around the corner and there's another election, that so people shouldn't give up hope if their preferred candidate or party didn't win. You mentioned the 3 elections. Everybody should know that November 11th, we have the by-elections. You mentioned Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa, very key. And then surrounding yourself with family and comedy. I think that there was another good point here about the low voter turnout potentially being impacted by some of these mental health challenges and how people feel in context of hopelessness and things like that. So maybe if we resolve and are able to mainstream psychological concerns, we can improve voter turnouts and hopefully change the course of what individuals want in terms of their electoral outcome. So I think that that's very good. Mr. Apele, are you there? I really want people to get a sense from TAP Africa. If people don't know, TAP Africa was formerly the Ableism Foundation. You guys did some really good work when it comes to electoral assessments. Can you just point, is there like one or two or three key findings when it comes to persons with disabilities from your electoral observation missions that conducted that people should just be aware of when it comes to what they might have faced during the elections as vulnerable populations?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was listening to the Lagos State Governor aspirant. He's a dogged fighter. But sir, I want to also say to you, we must not lose hope. We must not lose hope in this country and in the system that we have. We must continue to instill confidence and ensure that we, especially your kind of personality with huge followership, there's a need for you to be the inspiring leader that you are. You may not like the system, and the system is not too good. I must confess. I was part of the election, so I know what happened, you know. And yesterday, I've since after election, I have stayed away from INEC because we supported INEC in inclusivity, but twice I've gone to INEC. The first time was a meeting with the chairman, and I told him my mind. You know, I wouldn't deny the fact that he's a friend. I gave him all the, well, when I mean my own institution, my organization, we did our best to make sure that everything about inclusivity were taken care of. But of course, I didn't like the way things turned out, not because of any preferred candidate. I remain strictly apolitical. I may have my personal, affiliation or likened to a particular candidate, but that's not, that doesn't really matter. So I was able to let him know my disappointment, and and then yesterday was a second meeting with the chairman, and this is what I said to him publicly. I said, don't you ever think that you have been able to win back the lost confidence of the people. You will have a huge task and a huge burden on your shoulders to rebuild confidence of the electorate and the citizens. The citizens of this country have lost confidence in INEC, But the question is, if we stay that way, then we will never have democracy in this country. I believe that, yes, we need to acknowledge some of their lapses, but we must not fold our hands and watch them hold on to the system and refuse to let us correct the ills that we all know. And so the Labour Party governorship candidate, sir, this is the time for you to come out. This is the time for you to point out those things that you don't like. You have created a voice for yourself and for the people that follows you. Please don't go back to your shelf. Don't give politicians a space. Don't give them a foothold, before they take take the whole space from us. We must continue. I have started advocating for electoral reforms, holistic electoral reform. So for us, we had huge expectations. We invested a lot of money. We launched the very first disability electoral hub and disability dashboard. And one of the reasons why I didn't want to really associate with any candidate, because I had the data, and I didn't want to compromise the integrity of what I was doing,
Thank you, sir.
So, yeah. So we had the data. So I'm sorry I ran out of time, but not out of words. But I keep sounding very philosophical. And I will end on this note. We all can make a living with what we get, but we can make life with what we give. Don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. My sister, don't give up. My brother, don't give up. If you give up, it becomes worse for the next generation. You are an Amazon, my sister. My brother, if you ever fail, you fail forward. And that means you can get up again. You went to IME, one of the best institutions in technology. Let's keep fighting with what we have. It doesn't matter how long it will take, but we'll win.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I like that. That's a hopeful message. We can't fold our hands. We will win. We already have some questions here, but I just want to touch base. We need to get the voice of the youth here before we go back to the person that you've charged and so said he did not give up. So, Sophie, are you still there?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, please. Do you have any thoughts on twofold perspectives? One, is there specific strategies that you think would help individuals in terms of the psychosocial and emotional effects? And then secondly, there's a report that Yaga did concerning the elections that discussed the role of political discourse in influencing mental health. Things like hate speech and divisive rhetoric. Can you talk about some of Yaga's findings when it comes to these things on candidates, vulnerable communities, when it comes to elections, and also, like I said, share your perspective in terms of what's been said and strategies you may have to deal with people's mental health impacts if it took a toll during this Nigeria Decides.
Yeah, I think first of all, as a civil organization or person working in this space, is to review election programming or program design to support that supports candidates to include social, psychosocial to candidates. And you agree with me that perhaps due to the experiences and the trauma some of these candidates, even those that emerge winners in elections, are facing, could have led to some of the reactions or some of the attitudes we've seen in the past or we're seeing currently from political office holders. That's one. Secondly, perhaps we need to review our voter education content to incorporate these issues, because these issues are real. Even though we understand that this is new, it has been there, but in terms of how vocal it's been lately, it's sounding as a new dimension in our engagement in the democratic and political space. But our voter education should be expanded to cope that, not just to address the contestant, but also the supporters. And this could go a long way to address issues around political violence that we see, especially in the post-election era or post-election phase. Another thing is to go back to the political parties. Perhaps these issues can be addressed by policies of political parties. Political parties need to add safeguarding rules to protect the participation of marginalized groups, especially youth and women, to help which usually discourages them from participating in elections. And just to quickly summarize to your question on our findings were actually even for us that were documenting the experiences, were left a bit traumatized, and this is because from our interactions and with some of these victims of either hate speech, sexual and sexual and gender-based violence in the electoral space, we've discovered that most of them did not get justice, and most of the times they're left traumatized, which affects their mental health. And in most cases, some of them usually take time to leave those spaces, and they are forced perhaps so that they could get their healings. And of course, when you have more people from this marginalized group taking out time to heal for the sake of their mental health, which is justifiable, in one breath. On the other breath is shrinking the space that is already not very occupied by this group of individuals or this group of people in the society. So these are some of the effects we've seen. But what are the recommendations we've looked at? I think the recommendations are not far from the few that I've mentioned in terms of programming, as well as political parties reviewing their policies and their strategies to make some of this inclusive. I also personally think that the discussions or conversations around issues of mental health need to be normalized. They should not be treated as separate issues, even in terms of our budgeting, even in terms of planning for elections. While we're planning for elections, I'm happy to see that schools are beginning to incorporate this. And just to share that a few weeks ago, I was at my son's school, and I never knew that to address issues of safeguarding and others, an LAS school has different toilets per class for male and female, and children at 2 years old, they're being taught safeguarding measures and issues. And the reason why I'm a bit particular about this is because young women are mostly affected by that and are usually discouraged from participating in elections. And these are some of the findings from our documentary and some of and our engagement firsthand with these people. And interestingly, we've observed pre-election environment for over, I can say, over 8 years now. And our findings are usually findings of electoral violence indicators are usually around hate speeches, as you the greatest statement. And you will agree with me that where hate, damage, and the derogatory speech are not regulated, it affects participation of marginalized group immensely.
Thank you so much for that. And you can see this macroeconomic challenges that we deal with in Nigeria, because my gen is off. So pardon me with the no lights, but we heard some specific calls to GRV in terms of his perception and his voice. So I think that is only right that we give him an opportunity, if he's available, to respond and give some closing thoughts concerning this. So are you available?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, there's no giving up, you know. I feel that what tends to happen with politics is a pouring out, right? A lot of sacrifice. Be it your time, your resources. I mean, my case in the appeal court has been filed. And I'm sure they'll give us a date, probably early next week. And then from there, regardless, I mean, a governorship sort of tribunal goes over the Supreme Court. I mean, no serious person will stop halfway. And each of these processes, you're talking about hundreds of millions. So it's not easy. So one must always take time to rebuild and to build yourself back up, you know, in situations like this. And I'm not talking for myself, right? I mean, I've run for local government chairman, I've run for Senate, I'm running for governor now. So I've had time to build this capacity in terms of expectations of a process, how to deal with the process, and all that. But for me, my message was more for the people. And, hope and time are the largest currency any nation can have. Hope, because a leader that can inspire hope can inspire people that are even smarter than him or have or her or have more capacity than him or her. And time, right? Managing all your resources in a timely fashion. But so my message really is one has to time it. You cannot come out like today now on a day where everybody is downcast and start talking about, oh, we should have hope, we should rebuild. I know that you need to give people that downtime to reflect, to feel their feelings, like Ms. Aisha said, to sit in your feelings so you can get over it. And then start to remind them of the greatness that they achieved and start to show them what they can now do better. Right? It's in knowing what you can do better and believing you can do better that hope starts to get ignited again. So there's no giving up. You see, with politics, more than anything, the more you stay in it, the bigger you get, the stronger you get, the network you have is larger, the name recognition is larger. So you only truly lose when you give up. Right? So that's not going to happen. And to be quite honest, um, I know that this process, there's going to be good news that will come by January. By God's grace, it will kindle hope in a lot of people. But aside from that, so just to say to the appeal that was made, I'm not giving up. I am just in a situation now where, because I'm fighting this all the way to the Supreme Court, I must ensure that security wise, I'm in a good position. And so I cannot be, no vulnerability can be used against this determination or resolve of mine to see it all the way to the end. And I guess this is where mental health too can come in because, like for instance, Bush Williams is an uncle of mine. Is went to Greg's, my father. So knowing his story, knowing how close he was to my family, is something that one looks at and says, okay, these are mistakes I'm not going to make by God's grace. And so security must always be paramount and understand that it's part of the game and be very cognizant that you're not going to pull punches. And if you're seriously going to go that way, you need to, because there's an opportunity cost to all of this. If you're going to go all the way, then you're going to do that and dedicate resources and time and things around you might suffer. And if you're not going to go all the way, there are bribes that they're going to offer you to withdraw your case and all of that. If that's what you want to do. You need to know the entire spectrum of what you're dealing with. So I say all that to say that most of what I was talking about was for the young people that are getting involved for the first time, that are dealing with this feeling of hopelessness right now. They need time to disengage. Right? Not me. I'm in court. I'm in court to go in court to give judgment. Beginning of January, middle of January. So and then after that, we'll see where that takes us. So thank you. Thank you for having me. And we pray. Also, there's something that we've not talked about here that I don't hear anybody mention, or maybe someone said, but I didn't hear. Spirituality is also extremely important. Getting in tune with yourself really helps in these times. Whatever belief system you have, whether it's Ifa or Islam or Christianity, or just your own knowledge of your inner man or inner woman, spending time with yourself, trying to connect, these things also help. And like, and as Aisha said, walking the garden, walking barefooted, I cannot explain how that helps. It's amazing. You know, God created us to be in nature, and when you think about the concrete jungle that we're in, like my leg has not touched grass except I intentionally intend for my leg to touch grass. You know, so it's something that, earthing is something that people talk about that, has this feeling of making people feel good. And yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you
You.
so much, sir. We really appreciate that. We look forward to the picture of you walking barefoot, um, to to help us understand the spiritual and reconnecting with nature. I'm just going to go to one
Yeah.
or two questions or comments from the audience
Okay.
from this really engaging panel.
Okay.
So I see we have one question from Yemi. Yemi, you have your hand up. Do you want
Okay.
to come off of mute and ask your comment to any of our panelists or give your general thoughts?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And thank you to the panelists for
Good
sharing on
evening.
hi, Jeremy, your vulnerabilities. We're talking mental health, and I wanted to just let Mr. Pele know that I found some of his comments a bit triggering. So Aisha spoke about her experience, and when I think you were trying to empathize, but a lot of the stereotypes around how women are seen came out in your words. You're a smart woman, you're intelligent. And so I found those things very triggering. I don't think, if it was a guy that said that they were beaten, nobody would say, oh, you're a guy. Nobody tells Jerry that you're a guy, you're intelligent. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say we're discussing mental health. And because I found those comments triggering, I did want to let Mr. Pele know. And yeah. Let me park it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yemi. We really appreciate your comments and your honesty. I don't know if there's any one or two other questions. If you have a question, you can raise your hand, or if you have a comment from anything you've heard in the panel today. Is there any other question or comment? Okay, we have one from Ola. Ola, if you can come off of mute and make your question or comment known.
Oh, yes, hi. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Good
can hear you.
evening.
All right. Thanks to the team that organized. I can't remember her name now. The lady that was speaking, that was a contestant on the PDP.
It's Aisha.
Can't remember her name. Oh yeah, Aisha. Is she still here? I don't think I can see her anymore.
Yeah, she's still
Well,
here.
I'm still
I
here.
think she's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I just wanted to, I wanted to ask a couple of questions. Okay, yes, I can see you, ma. Hi. I'm curious because I'm at a stage now where I'm trying to make a decision of what political party to go to, what I want to be doing over the next 4 years as a young adult, and generally as a businessman. I'm doing okay for myself, and I feel like those kind of things that make you do okay in business, you've got to sort of translate to politics, and that gives credence to your point of you don't even know who your delegates are days to your primary. And so I'm just curious to get your thoughts. I've asked different people these questions. I followed GRV since he came back and he ran for LGA and then Senate. And, I've got to, engage him one-on-one and sort of hear his own thoughts. But for you, I don't know you, so I'm just curious as somebody who has interests to go into a political party now, and not just go into a political party. Like I said, if I'm going to do this, I probably want to gather people around and figure out the system, and take it a long-term, that long-term approach, which is probably why I'm not so emotional about the election, right? The moment we lost, I figured that, okay, so 2027. So Aisha, that's my question to you. I have another one for GRV. which is, you know,
Okay, please
I
say
remember.
it quickly. Please say it quickly.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So for GRV, I mean, in your opinion, and just like you said, you're in it for the long run, and it's right for you not to feel like you lost or you're a loser. You are basically just, I would say, a young man who is setting that standard for we young men that are not just coming into that system. But your thoughts going forward, what will you say to people that you have learned that you probably would have done differently now that you have that about? I think the first one with COA was almost 10 years ago. I'm not sure how many years now, but that's really just where I'm at. I'm sure we can chop that up later on, but yeah.
Okay.
Mrs.
Thank
Aisha,
you
yes.
so much.
Chime, should
Thank
I
you, Chime.
go? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to know, is there any one last question or comment before we let the panelists respond? Is there any last question or comment? Does anybody have one real quick? Going once, going twice. Sold. Okay. So Aisha, please, you can respond and then we'll have
Sure.
GRV respond.
All right, thank you. Well, I mean, it sounds like you've already figured it out fairly well. That you know, it's to start taking the long game, and obviously before even after 2027, there'll be 2031, so to speak. Yeah, joining a party is great. I would say misery loves company. Try and get some more people. Again, thinking about mental health, having a few like-minded people in the same party would probably work wonders. And I'm sure GRB can speak more about that in his journey. And he's had the opportunity to run from different platforms. So he can also speak to maybe the importance of having like minds, like fellow travelers in the same party with you. I know it's not very easy to join political parties. It's all part of the ethos of our politics that I talked about in terms of how it's designed to sort of keep people out, keep information. So joining a party is actually no easy thing to do, especially the main parties in quotes. But if it's one of the fringe parties that we have, I think we have about 18 registered right now, 18, 19 registered. It probably won't be difficult to do, but yeah, think about it. But I would say, honestly, for me, the key thing would be please don't go alone. Go with as many people, make it a challenge to yourself to get as many people that have the same values that you have to join you. And hopefully that will also serve as your own support group within and your encouragement as you do that. But yeah, good luck with that. I find that most of our political parties are not political parties in the sense of, and we say that a lot, but it sort of falls into deaf ears, not holding GRV responsible, but even in light of the conversations that we're having right now about how much the National Assembly are spending on cars for themselves, we've not even heard, for those of us who are supporting Labour as the new party in quotes, even though they're not new, because we've seen them with Mimiko, we've seen them with Oshomole, and so we already know what kind of politicians are in Labour, but we still expected better. And you've not heard anything convincing coming from the few Labour legislative members who they even try to differentiate themselves from the others. So to be honest, good luck with joining a party and using that vehicle to bring any meaningful reforms to Nigeria.
Thank you for that, Aisha. I think you made a good point, because this theme about support systems has come up a couple of times, whether it's support system from family, support system from friends, support system from the politicians. So I think that is a good point when it comes to mental health. GRV, I'll give you an opportunity to respond. And because people have mentioned already being triggered and things like that, I think after this conversation, we'll go directly to our psychiatrist. It gives some coping strategies before we break out into our breakout sessions. So GRV, if you could please share some of your thoughts about what you would do differently as a young person, and even if you want to respond to what Aisha just mentioned about labor.
Yes, I remember when I read about this whole car thing, I put a message on my social media platforms that, we need to decide, we need to get serious. And, if you like a G-Wagon or a Land Cruiser, you can buy with your money, but the state owes it to the people that any resources is going to use to further the ambitions of the state, right? Whether it is creating a more productive workforce, productive industry, in the country, and creating employment, right? So I said that, and the chairman of the party came out and said the same. I think His Excellency Peter Obi also talked about it. But you see, what every party needs is somebody at a very high level that will not just, okay, so in campaigning, Peter Obi set some values that a lot of people responded to. So most people that came under that rode that wave, a lot of them might have keyed into it, but not necessarily believe it or not necessarily be converts. And they rode that wave. Now, and you see it, it's the what they say, the action is in the pudding, or the evidence is in the pudding, the proof is in the pudding, yeah. So now they're in the House of Rep, and you see that, or the Senate, or whichever house they're in, and you don't see that distinguishing factor. Because most of them there's no ideology that has been created, right? So I can assure you that if Peter Obi was president, they will feel obligated to take a stand, because His Excellency Peter Obi would have put out a value system and followed it to action. Now, unfortunately, that's not. And when you want to change something that has been in the system for so long, and Messiah has talked about this as well, which is the amount of people that with you that share those values with you. Dipping those few people into a whole group of people that have normalized this whole idea of buying cars every 4 years and spending so much money on it, and most people that might not be strong-willed will just go with the norm, right? They'll go with the norm. So that's what that is. But like I said, and I always say, you need to decide whether you're serious or not. You cannot be experiencing so much poverty and you're still spending the state resources on importing cars that cost so much. I spoke to, the day after I spoke to the owner of Nord, and I asked him if he has a car like this that can be armored like this and this spec. How much can it cost? 40 million. 40 million. Think about that's almost 120 million naira CV. That will not need to be converted to dollars and leave your economy. That's on a car. I am multiplying that by almost 200, 300 something. Anyway, so that's that. His question was what I've learned.
Yeah, and I think
there are a
the
lot of
reason
things
it's
I've learned.
important, I was going to say, I think one of the things you mentioned was process. So if there's things differently that would have helped the process, then that would also, I think, encourage people in terms of next steps and hope.
Okay, so you see, the issue that I generally have with that question is people want to put one leg on the ground and put one leg in the water to test. Now, I'm sorry, please forgive me, but I'm speaking from my own small experience, my own limited perspective. Everybody's journey is different, right? From my own limited experience, people that do that one leg they want to test, they never go find politics. It's this is what I'm doing, you jump in. That's my own experience. With Core Party, I joined the party, got to understand the culture, spend time, resources, understanding, spending time, understanding their way of doing things, and engaged. I'm running for local government chairman. PDP, I did the same thing. All in, right? You go all in, and you learn. You might go in and not contest as you go in. You might contest 4 years later. You can go all in, find somebody that you believe in, and support that person. Whether you're the person's right-hand man in terms of doing manifestos, doing posters, going to canvass people for the person, and then if you're lucky, the person wins and the person can give you an appointment, right? There's that. Or you're just a member of the party that is contributing to the quality of candidates that emerge out of the primary process, right? So there's that. Then you also have a situation where you can just be somebody that elevates the quality of discourse in the party. Especially like Ms. Aisha said, when you have a number of people that join the party with you. So a party's ideology is a reflection of people in the party. If you have a huge amount of people that have taken responsibility in a party, they're contributing and paying the rent for the party secretariat, are contributing and taking care of things in the party, and all of a sudden they say that we want somebody that is well educated to be our candidate. We want somebody that has empathy to be our candidate. Those will start to influence who comes out as the state assembly candidate or the House of Rep candidate. So there's that part as well. And then there's the part, okay, you feel that you should run, you feel you should be candidate, and you're going. I mean, look at my journey. I co-ed, I joined PDP, I ran for Senate, I ran for governor under the PDP. The governors in the party, matching day, all the leaders in the party felt that they should give it to somebody else. I looked at it. My leaders in the party suggested that I be his deputy. I was not happy about it, but I looked at it like, sometimes people that have been in this thing for so many years are seeing things that you cannot see. So I waited. It did not work. Guess what? I moved to another party, learned their ways, went all in, took time, and I saw a window and I capitalized on it and I emerged as a candidate and did decently, right, in the election. So
Thank you.
if you talk about what you can, so that's one in terms of joining. Just start.
So, Sarah, if you could just maybe just give us a last maybe 30-second point, so we can we can go to the next one.
Yeah. So with me, over-analysis does not really help. Get involved. It's all a learning process. Continue learning. Like there is no end in sight to learning about politics and learning how to manage it, because people come in all sorts of variations and they are not stoic, right? Those human beings are constantly changing allegiances and ideas and alliances and life experiences. So that's it. So get involved, understand it, and play your part. I guess that's what I'll say.
Thank you so much. And I
think I'll leave it there.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I think that your story actually, you talked about hope being important. I think that your story helps, because sometimes people could have said things didn't work out, whether when you wanted to become the deputy governor, and yet you became a governorship candidate, etc. That same experience can be the experience of candidates or people who are supporters. It may not work out, but there might be light at the end of the tunnel. So we have to remain hopeful. Yeah. We need to continue to push. We need to continue to learn. So I think it's a really, really good suggestion. And based on all this conversation that we have, I think it's important for us to get some professional experience, some professional perspective when it comes to mental health, when it comes to elections, when it comes to things around psychiatric vulnerability. So I want to introduce to the stage Dr. Jabril Abdul Malik. He is an associate professor and consultant psychiatrist with the Department of Psychiatry, College of Medicine at the University of Ibadan. He is also the founder of a CEDO Foundation, and we're proud that they're a partner on the event and have also been working with us to implement things like the Mental Health Act and Suicide Crime Campaign. Furthermore, he's a managing partner of a consulting firm that promotes cutting-edge holistic emotional wellness and consultancy services. He's worked internationally as a co-investigator and project consultant with the World Health Organization, CBM Australia, and the European Union. So can we welcome Dr. Jabril Abdul Malik to the stage to give us some suggestions on coping with mental health stress, anxiety, and psychological trauma? Dr. Jabril?
Thank you very much, Chime, and thanks for having me, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure listening to the panelists. GRV, thank you so much for sharing your experience and for being very candid. Aisha Osori, well done for your courage and your efforts. Sefia Abichi, and everyone who has spoken. So I'm just, in the interest of time, going to move very quickly to talk about elections, coping strategies for optimal emotional wellness. And we're going to do this. Most of everyone who has spoken have actually touched on one or two of these issues. So I'm just going to talk about this in two major sections. One is that, unfortunately, whenever we have to talk about mental health, we have to firstly start by clearing the cobwebs, right? Because there are so many misconceptions and things about mental health. Some people, once they hear mental, they say, oh, weary, madness, yaba left, aru, and so on. But is that really what mental health is all about? So I would like to start by clearing cobwebs and then talk about tips for promoting our emotional well-being. So let's start by remembering that the definition of health, according to the World Health Organization, is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, right? So what this means is that health sits on three legs. One leg is physical, another leg is mental, and the other is social. And it's also very important to appreciate that these three components are interwoven, right? So if I have a physical diagnosis of cancer, I'm not going to go to church or go to the mosque and do Thanksgiving to celebrate that I'm about to die from cancer. No, I'm more likely to be upset, be anxious, be depressed, and those will be mental health consequences of my physical diagnosis of cancer. The same thing with social, my pocket is going to take a hit. Now, if we also start with social problems like electioneering, losing an election, feeling disappointed, feeling frustrated, sense of hopelessness over elections, these are social issues, right? Same as if you have a bad marriage or you work in an office that is toxic. But these social issues can negatively affect your physical well-being and you become hypertensive. They can also negatively affect your emotional well-being and you develop anxiety, depression, stress, and so on and so forth. Or you turn to drug abuse to sort of drown your sorrows and help you, give you Dutch courage and all of that. And that is also not very helpful. So it's important to appreciate that these are the components of health. And when we talk about mental health, it is not about madness. It is about your emotional well-being, your thinking, your mood, your anxiety levels, your functioning, and so on and so forth. So let's now move very quickly to tips for promoting our emotional wellness and helping us cope with the stress of elections and electioneering and so on, especially when people have lots of invested hope in a candidate or in a party, and then it is dashed, and some people feel, unfairly dealt with, by the system, because GRB mentioned when people lose confidence in the system, it also gives a lot of disappointment and frustration, and all of that can take its toll on your emotional well-being. So number one here that I have is retain hope, because when some individuals attempt suicide and they survive and they fail, and we are very grateful that they survived the suicidal attempt, most of the time they tell you that they got to a point where they felt there was no hope anymore. There was nothing worth living for anymore. Everything was lost and so on. And it is that loss of hope that pushes them over the cliff and makes them take the step of wanting to end their life. So hope is a very, very powerful tool. And we all need to remind ourselves and remind those in our social network that nation building and power via electioneering is a marathon. It takes time. It's not going to happen in the twinkle of an eye, right? So you have to be in it for the long haul and retain hope while you work assiduously for that long haul. Also very important to protect your head space. If toxic news really is getting you down, there's a lot of bitterness and, hostile exchanges on X or formerly Twitter, on social media generally, if that is giving you stress, please avoid social media. Avoid listening to the news. Take a time out, okay? Protect very jealously your emotional well-being. Invest in your human relationship, which is like your support structure. No human being is an island. We all need people from time to time to serve as our buffer. Everyone needs a helping hand from time to time, someone to lean on. The other tip is to exercise regularly. And when I say exercise, it doesn't mean go to the gym, right? It could mean go for a brisk walk in your neighborhood. But regular exercise helps to make your muscles to relax, because when you are stressed and you're anxious, your muscles are tense. So the muscles relax. They also release chemicals that lift your mood and make you feel good. So exercise is both physically beneficial as well as emotionally beneficial. Good sleep. You know, we've been created to sleep for a third of our lives. If you sleep for 8 hours in 24 hours, that's 1/3, right? So if you are 45 years old now, you should have slept by implication for 15 years of your life. By the time you hit 60, you should have slept for 20 years of your life. If you live long enough to get to 75, you should have slept for 25 years of your life. Why? Because sleep is fundamentally important for our brain functioning and our emotional well-being. So when you sleep, that's when the nerves repair themselves and so on. So please ensure that you prioritize your sleep. Spend quality time with your loved ones. Again, this is still talking about the support structure. Avoid drug abuse. Ladies and gentlemen, I beg you, with everything that you hold there, avoid drug abuse, because once addiction sets in, it becomes a situation of the tail wagging the dog, no longer the dog wagging the tail, right? So we say that for drug abuse, prevention is always, always better. The best treatment is prevention. Don't even go near it. So, but some people say, oh, we are just using it to cope with stress, to cope with anxiety, and that is unhelpful. Very important to build your emotional muscle, build your resilience, build your mindsets to allow you handle disappointments, frustrations, and difficult situations. And it also helps when you have a support structure to help you do so. And this is the last one. Respect everyone's right to hold different opinions, right? I mean, you, by your own reasoning, have come to the conclusion that your candidate is the best candidate. Allow other people the liberty to also exercise that right to choose a different candidate. Okay, there is no need for toxicity about having different choices. Be kind and nice to others, the same way you will want them to treat you in a nice way. And when you do so, it also makes you feel good. Please, let's remember to just try our best and leave the rest. Okay, you can't change the world over. Even God has not decided to come down from heaven to come and change the world himself, right? So he's giving us time, and these things take a painfully long time. There are other things you can do: community service, volunteering, create and add value in your own little space, in your own little corner. The best example I have of this is when you see how small ants come together to move a big leaf that is 100 times the size of each ant. And then they all grab one edge and they keep moving slowly, and eventually they get it to their destination. So let's have that long-term view and add value in our own little space. Don't despise the days of humble beginnings and small actions. Eventually, they all will coalesce. And for all of us, none of us is going to be alive forever. So while you are alive, enjoy each day and be grateful for it. Each day you wake up and you draw breath and you are healthy. Stay grounded, be humble, and ultimately remember that we are all on stage. You know, we all have a manufacturing date the day we were born. We all have an expiry date the day we are going to die. None of us is going to be immortal, right? So while you are alive, do your bits. And then when you sign out, others will continue from where you stop. Don't take yourself too seriously. Okay, seek help if you need it. If you are now struggling emotionally and you know that you have tried all of these tips and you're not feeling better, or you know someone who is still struggling, then please talk to a mental health professional without any hesitation. We are all one humanity. Let us nurture and cultivate relationships. We need one another. Regardless of our religious differences, ethnic differences, we are all Nigerians. We are all humanity. If we were ever in doubt that we are one humanity, remember what COVID did to us. Something that started from Wuhan, China, brought the entire world to its knees, and all of us went into lockdown. We are all very interconnected, not to talk of those of us living in the geographical space of Nigeria. So in conclusion, elections will come and go. Very good to be invested in candidacy of our choice, but let's stay pragmatic and grounded. Let's promote an emotionally healthy society. where we can have good interpersonal relationships, eschew bitterness and toxicity. Let's keep our eye on the long haul. If you need help, please go for it. Remember, none of us is born wearing a cape and tights. Okay, just do the best you can and keep your head up. That's the social media handles of ACEDO Foundation. We're very proud to work with Nigerian Mental Health and excellent work that you are doing. Thank you very much for having me.